Today we're going to talk about the double stroke roll, one of our most fundamental and important rudiments that we learn as drummers. There are probably many of you who already know how to play a double stroke roll, have already experimented with it or even become fairly adept at it. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of the fundamental things that are important to think about as you're building a double stroke roll, or as you're from scratch, or as you're trying to improve your double stroke roll, if you've ever realized that there are any tempos or areas of it that might have weakness, or that you don't feel as confident in your execution of them. So, first let's just define what the rudiment is. It's pretty self-explanatory. A double stroke roll is a roll, so it sounds like a continuous long sound made from the drum, but the roll itself, as opposed to a buzz roll, is made up of a more open sound and more open strokes. It's also known as the open roll, and some people still even refer to it as the long roll. But the name that I like the most for it is the double stroke roll, because that tells you what the roll is. What the roll is, when I'm making this sound, all I'm really doing is playing 2 strokes on my right hand, 2 strokes on my left hand, 2 strokes on my right hand, 2 strokes on my left hand, over and over and over in a very even way, and all connected so that it sounds very smooth with a nice rolling sound. So really, what we start with are just bouncy legato strokes on each hand. So for the purpose of what I'm going to do, what we're doing here, I'm going to kind of I'm going to move my home base position up here, so you can kind of get the sense that every time I'm playing a stroke, I'm trying to make the stick return back to a greater height than just when I'm playing down here. You can play a double stroke roll low, but we're going to start by building it from a place where our sticks are coming from a high position, what I'll call 12 inches. Okay? So if we start here, all we're really doing is playing 2 bouncy legato strokes on the right hand, and then 2 bouncy legato strokes on the left hand. It's very important when you play these 2 strokes in each hand that after you play the first stroke, the stick bounce back up to the original height that it started at, so that when you initiate your second stroke, it's coming from the same place, so that it will have the same quality of sound as your first stroke. So we have to go stroke, stroke. Okay, so that's why I'm going to have our home base be up here for the purpose of building this from scratch. What we want to avoid is a double stroke doing this, coming from a high place, only bouncing part of the way back up, and then the second stroke coming from that lower height. We don't want because that will make the roll begin to have a choppy sound, instead of very smooth and open where it sounds even all the way throughout. So be wary of be wary of your second stroke of any double coming from too low a height, which really is to say beware of your first stroke not bouncing all the way back up. That's the key to the second stroke coming from the same height. If you don't let this stick bounce back up, then there's no way for the second stroke to come from up here without you having to do extra work to bring it up, which won't happen as we get faster. So a double stroke roll is simply starting from here: right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. As my speed increases, my heights can decrease in a very sort of natural way, so that I'm having to cover less distance with the path of my stick. Right? As I get to kind of a moderately fast place, my heights are not as great as they were when I started. So here, my doubles sound like that. But again, my second stroke is coming back up to where my first stroke came from. When we're trying to build a double stroke roll, it's very important that you pay attention to keeping both your sticks in your hand. But also, it's very important that you pay attention to the idea of your right hand and your left hand sounding the same. You want them to look, feel, and sound the same. You'll hear me say that a lot whenever I'm teaching any sort of fundamental exercises. That's the greatest way. If we want them to sound the same, which we do, the best way to ensure that they sound the same is to make sure that they feel the same when the stick's moving in them. If we want them to feel the same, the best way to make sure that they do that is for them to look the same. So we want to make sure we're holding the stick in the same way in both hands. We're approaching the stroke in the same way with both hands, so it will sound even from right to left. So what you have to do sometimes is isolate your right hand double stroke and your left hand double stroke and make sure they look, feel, and sound the same. Can I do this with my right hand consistently? And can I do it with my left hand consistently in a way that sounds just like my right? Right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left. Something else I want you guys to think about as we do this, it's very easy to play a slow tempo, right, right, left, left, and to have a very controlled stroke, right, right, left, left, right, right, where I'm not really letting the stick bounce. But at a certain point, if I'm controlling the stick too much, I can only go so fast before I run out of gas, before I can't make it go any faster under my own power, and I have to begin to relax and let the stick bounce, let the drum pad do the work. So I like to start from the very beginning by letting the drum pad or the drum itself, if we were playing on a drum itself, do the work of bouncing the stick back up. I want to get used to letting that thing do the work, and then that makes it easier to transition into the faster tempos. So a double stroke roll, something else to notice about it, as we get to a moderately quick tempo, about here, you'll notice that my wrists are really only doing this much work. My wrists are playing about this fast, and I'm letting each one of these single strokes, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, bounce so that I get that second note. There's the single strokes, and if I just let it bounce, I get the double stroke. So I used to wonder when I was young and I would hear somebody play a drum roll, I was like, wow, how do they get their hands to move that fast? It's amazing. And once I learned and realized that, oh, whether they're playing a buzz roll or they're playing an open double stroke roll, they're not moving their hands as fast as the sound that my ears are hearing. Their hands are really only moving about like that, which is not massive. It's not a extreme speed. And then they're letting it bounce. That's the double strokes. That's the single strokes. With the bounce, that's the speed you get on a double stroke. So work on bouncing 2 even strokes, alternating from the right hand to left hand, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, over and over and over. But I also want you, for any rudiment we're learning, there's another skill that we want to learn with it, and that is playing the rudiment from slow to fast to slow. What that means is we start the rudiment in an exaggeratedly slow place, and we're demonstrating and making sure that our technique looks good and feels good and sounds nice and even from one hand to the other. And then we gradually and evenly speed the rudiment up until we get to basically our fastest tempo that we can play the rudiment at without losing control over it. Okay, so we don't want to totally max it out and redline the engine, to use an auto racing term, to where the engine's going to blow or where the train's going to come off the tracks. You don't want to go till you're like, oh, I can barely control this. You want to stop just short of that, where you know you can control it still. You're almost as fast as you could possibly play. You're going to hold it there for a few seconds. Then you're going to turn that rudiment around and start to slow it down. And you want to slow it down at the exact same pace and rate that you used when you were accelerating, when you were making it fast. You want to decelerate, slow down at the same rate, so that it's nice and even. If it takes you 10 seconds to go from your slowest to your fastest, it should take you 10 seconds to go from your fastest to your slowest. You should end at the same tempo you start at. I'm going to play this. I'll model that for you, okay? Let's see, we'll grade myself at the end. I might not do this perfectly. I'm going to leave my home base down here for now and just prep my sticks as I need to get ready for each stroke. Nice and steady and even. There we go. We're starting to roll now, really. Okay, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to call this my fastest for this example. I'm going to hold it here for a second or two, and then, whoops, and then I'm going to start to gradually slow it down. It's getting slightly different sounds from my right to my left. Perfectly even position over my drum, and I'm probably not striking the pad in exactly the same place every time. So that's an example of playing your double stroke roll slow to fast to slow. Now it doesn't matter if your fastest that you can play the double stroke is what I just did while you're learning it and while you're building it and trying to make it better. If your fastest you can play the double stroke roll and keep it under control is letting that stick bounce, if that's about as fast as you can go, that's okay. That means you can still play it from slow to fast to slow. You just have to take about the same amount of time, just build it more gradually to model the nice range of tempos from your slowest to your fastest. So that would look like this. Maybe I'll even start slower. Take a little more time getting there. Okay, that's as fast as I can go. That's okay. I'm going to hold it here, keep it steady for a couple of seconds. Then I'm going to gradually start to slow down. You don't want to hit the brakes too hard as you're starting to slow the double stroke roll down so that you jerk it to a much slower tempo very quickly. There we go. I don't know if we went and played that back. Somebody can critique me. You might discover that I took significantly different amount of time going into it to my fastest as I did coming out of it. I'm not sure because I was talking over it. But the point with that example is it doesn't matter if your top roll speed while you're learning and trying to develop mastery of it is super fast. You want to know where it is at any given moment, any given stage of your development, and be able to model slow to fast to slow like that. What you want to avoid as well is this. Sometimes people can play double strokes kind of low like this. They're kind of fast. And they can play slow and controlled, but they're not good at the middle section. A lot of young drummers have struggled with this middle range of tempo. Nice, relaxed, bouncy double strokes where they're letting the drum do the work of the bouncing, but they're not super fast like that. So sometimes people will play it like this, which needs to be improved upon. They'll play slow, and they just jump right in to the fast speed, and then when they slow it down, they keep their diddles fast, their double strokes fast, and they slow their hands down, and there's this big gap between the double strokes. So we don't want that either. Just try to get it nice and even and smooth the whole way. Get it.